This one, my friends, is called John Carter. Watch the video until the end. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening and subscribing to the channel, my friends. Now, this planet is called Barsoom, but it is slowly dying. You see, the city of Sodanga, it's draining its life. And only the city of Helium is resisting as they corner Sodanga in a big battle with airships in a sandstorm. Now, they attack the enemy, and the ruler of Sodanga, Sabtan, navigates above the sandstorm to fire at them at will. However, another Helion ship hovers above and deploys warriors, killers, assassins, and is a great sparkling battle to definitely watch. When suddenly, a mysterious blue light vaporizes everyone except Sabtan, the ruler. Now, the Therns, which is the ethnicity of this planet, they arrive, and their leader, Matai Shang, and they give Sabtan, the ruler of Sodanga, a weapon. Sabtan smiles and just turns the weapon against them, but they deflect the attack. He claims that their goddess chose Sabtan, and if he complies, he'll rule over Barsoom. Now we cut to New York City, my friends, from New York City, my city, the one I've been living on for 20 years. We cut to New York City at 1881. John Carter misdirects a pursuer before sending a letter to summon his nephew. But there is someone watching him without him noticing. Now Edgar soon arrives in New York and learns his uncle has passed. Then we cut to John's attorney, Noah Dalton, and he shares that John's death was a surprise because he was healthy, and that before John died, he relentlessly searched for something all across the world. Edgar shares that his mother thought John never truly returned from the war. Edgar loved the stories, and he told them when he was young. Then Noah takes Edgar to John's own secret lair, or the place that he would work, kind of like a museum, which can only be opened from the inside. Then Noah goes on to explain that John didn't want his body embalmed or have a funeral. In John's will, he leaves his estate, his wealth, and private journal to Edgar. After Noah leaves, Edgar sits back overwhelmed by the events. He then reads the journal where John asks him to believe his stories again. In 1868 in Arizona, John entered a bar. Mr. Dix, the barkeeper, scolds John for not paying his tab. John promises to pay since he has a lead on the cave, a specific cave, but Mr. Diggs cuts him off. A bar patron tells the barkeeper to pay respects to John's supposed evil spider cave of gold. He asks to leave, then the men surround him, but John beats them. He throws a small gold bar to Mr. Diggs for the unpaid tab and asks for beans. Suddenly, then a soldier arrives to fetch John. He charges at them, but a man knocks him out. When John wakes up, he meets Colonel Powell, and of course the cool John immediately hits him to escape, but he is caught. As Colonel Powell notes John's achievements in the war, John jumps out the window but is caught again and thrown into a cell. Finally, Colonel Powell recruits John for the ongoing fight with the Apache, but John refuses, claiming he has already paid his debt to the country in full, so leave me alone. John then plots to escape and become rich enough to buy Powell, so Powell punches him and threatens his life if he doesn't comply. John dreams of a woman calling him to supper before waking up. He pees outside the cell to provoke the guard, allowing him to knock him out and escape. Colonel Powell and his men chase after John but stop upon meeting an Apache group. John negotiates with the natives in a slick way, but a soldier shoots, starting a battle. John escapes but sees Colonel Powell get hit, so he returns to save him. The two hide in the cave, but the Apache corners them. However, they retreat upon seeing a spider symbol above the cave. John enters the cave and sees strange symbols that don't really seem to belong to the Apache. Above him, John finds the gold he had been searching for. Suddenly, a Thern materializes behind John, wielding a knife. Powell warns John, allowing him to dodge. The Thern pushes John and grabs his knife, but John shoots him. The dying man chants while holding a medallion. John heard him say Barsoom and copies him as he takes the medallion. Suddenly, blue light flashes from the medallion. John wakes up in a desert. He tries to walk, but ends up floating and falling on his stomach. After several failed attempts, John just, he throws a rock that rockets away. Realizing he's stronger and can jump higher, he skips away, but drops the medallion. Soon John hears cracking noises and follows them to a structure where he finds hatching alien eggs, my friends. Then later on, nearby, a creature picks up the medallion. Then John spots a group heading his way. Suddenly a creature attacks him, but he jumps away and hides. Seeing this, the creature orders his warriors to stop shooting. He drops his weapon and in alien language introduces himself as Tar Starkas, chief of the Tharks. John sees the weapon on the ground and introduces himself, adding that he's from Virginia. Tars mistakes Virginia as his name. He asks John to jump, so he does, but lands to take Tar's gun. However, he gets shot by another Thark. The Tharks take him and the hatchlings while killing the unhatched eggs they deemed weak. Cut now to Helium. Deja Thoris practices her presentation when the Royal Council enters to discuss the situation with Sadanga. Now the Admiral Kantos Khan reveals the eastern border is destroyed and their last squadron is defeated. Hopeless, Tardos declares Helium has lost. Deja disagrees and shows her machine capable of utilizing the unlimited energy of the ninth ray. She explains that Sabthan will only use it for slaughter, but they can use it to revitalize Barsoom. While the council marvels at the machine, one man touches it and secretly destroys it. Goodness sakes. Tardos tells Deja she must marry Sabthan to save Helium. Deja refuses, but Tard argues there's no other way. Kantos Khan returns to announce Sabthan's arrival. Meanwhile, the man who destroyed Deja's machine hides and shapeshifts into a Thurn. He tells Matai Shan that Deja almost discovered the ninth ray, but with the machine destroyed, and the plan proceeded. Elsewhere, John is taken to the city of Tharks, where the women fight over the hatchlings. Sala takes a hatchling but is beaten by Sarkoha. Tars orders Sarkoha to let Sola have one, but Sarkoha gives John to Sola instead. While Sola frees him from the shackles, John sees the burn marks on her body. John spots the medallion hanging from a Thark and goes after it, but Tal Hajus stop him. Tars intervenes, so an offended Tal challenges him without support. However, the challenge is denied. Tars presents John to all the people, then asks him to jump. However, John refuses, so he's taken away while Tars collect the medallion. John is clean along with the hatchlings at night. Sola feeds him with a liquid called Voice of Barzoom, making John delirious. When the hatchlings are asleep, a creature appears to sleep among them. John escapes from his shackles and leaps away, but the creature suddenly appears. Soon, John sneaks up on the Tharks to retrieve the medallion, but the creature follows him. The Tharks beat the creature, so John protects it and kills one of the Tharks with a punch. Tars is shocked by this. While John is surprised he can understand Tars, the Tharks knock him out, while Sola arrives for the creature, leading to the Tharks blaming her for John's escape. Now, John is sleeping and dreams of a child and a woman worriedly watching him leave. He wakes up, chained, but next to Sola. Sola is branded and Tars warns that her next offense means death. Tars orders John to jump again, but a Thark warns them of incoming ships. Sabthan and his ships chase after a Helium ship. He prepares to shoot down the Helium ship, but Matai Shan stops them because they need Deja alive. Instead, Sabthan brings the ship down. He captures the soldiers but doesn't find Deja. She appears out of hiding and takes control of her ship but crashes and gets thrown out. John sees her from afar and jumps to catch her. Gaining Sabthan and Matai Shang's attention, John fights to protect Deja, but after seeing her fight, he realizes it was unnecessary. John leaps towards a Sadanga ship, which he hijacks to shoot another. Matai Shang wants John alive, so Sabthan challenges John and beats him. However, the Tharks shoot them, allowing John to escape. Sabthan retreats and the Tharks rejoice. Impressed with John's abilities, Deja surrenders to the Tharks. The Tars honor John by giving him his breastplate and offer Deja as his prize. Deja warns Tars that Saldanga will conquer them too, but Tars thinks she wants John as a weapon, so he asserts that John fights for them. John argues that he fights for nobody, but Tars threatens Deja, so he reluctantly complies. The Tharks loot the destroyed ships while Deja mourns for the fallen Heliumites. John comments that war is shameful, but Deja disagrees, if it's for a noble cause, that is. John asks how their ships can fly since he only knows about ships that sail on seas. She calls him a liar because there are no seas on the planet. The two discuss the planets and they collude John is from Earth while Barzoon, where he is now, is Mars. John asserts that a medallion brought him there, so Deja thinks he's a Thurn. Deja takes John to the Thark's forbidden temple despite Sola's protest. Inside, Sola explains that Thurns are messengers from the goddess Isis. John and Deja learn from the gates of East where they believe John may find answers. Deja promises to take John there if he gets them out. However, the Tharks capture them. The three are sentenced to death. Tars blames John for endangering Sola, leading John to believe she is his daughter. Tars confirm this secretly, so John argues that he can't let her die. Tars take him to a tent, where he frees them and returns the medallion, as long as they take Sola. Later, Tal checks the tent but finds it empty, concluding that Tars betrayed them, while the group travels to find the river Is. Matai Shan convinces a reluctant Sab then that marriage will cement his reign, will make it stronger. Soon, Sola suspects Deja is misleading them, so John confronts her. Deja confesses to leading them to Helion in hopes of convincing John to fight for them. Betrayed, John and Sola leave, so Deja reveals she escaped because she cannot marry Saptan. In trying to chase him, Deja trips, making John return to her. Deja begs him, saying that the gates of Is aren't real, but John disagrees since the medallion is real. Soon, Matai Shang receives news that John is approaching the gates of Is, so he teleports there. The group reaches the river Is, and Sola decides to venture along to redeem herself. John convinces her otherwise by telling her that Tars is her father. They ride through the river and reach a strange structure. John and Deja jump over it like crazy maniacs, and John's medallion opens the entrance. As they enter, they see blue light spreading, leading Deja to realize that it's a machine, not a work of their god. John's medallion triggers a spider-like pattern composed of 9 lines. 9 lines, my friends. Deja realizes the 9th ray is real and is powering the structure. She concludes that the Thurns are real and gives Saldanga the 9th ray. Now this also convinces her that John is truly from Earth. Suddenly the light shows the solar system. When John steps on Earth's symbol, writings begin to appear. Deja hypothesizes that John's body on Mars is a copy of his body on Earth. Deja claims she needs her materials in helium to decipher the writings, but of course John thinks that she's tricking him. John wants to return to his goal, but Deja thinks he's not being honest with himself. They kiss, my friends. But John jerks away after recalling his family and is just like, get away from me. Suddenly Sola warns them about an army of war hoons. Then Matai Shang orders the war hoons to chase them. They ride away, but the army gets closer. John recalls finding his house burnt down, so he stays behind to let Deja and Sola escape. Deja then protests as Sola takes her away. Wula stays with him as the army approaches. John remembers finding his family's remains and rage in him. John launches himself towards the horde as he fights. He remembers burying his own family and fighting. John stands on a pile of dead Warhoons until he's happy and amazed and overwhelmed with himself. A helium ship then arrives and shoots at the Warhoons, scattering them all across. Tardos reunites with Deja, who digs John from the pile and finds him alive. Oh yeah. Saptan arrives to offer John medical assistance, but Deja pulls a gun on him. Tardos stops her, claiming that Saptan came with them out of concern for her. Saptan reminds her that Saldanga and Helium will unite if they marry. so Deja goes with them, leaving Sola and Woola behind, sadly. Soon, John wakes up in Saldanga. Kantos Khan enters the room and loudly claims that John is dangerous, while whispering for John to take him hostage. John is confused, so Kantos Khan pulls the sword and pretends to be a hostage to escape. They escape through the roof, where Kantos Khan tells John to leap to a distant tower. John doubts he can make the jump, but when the guards arrive, he does it anyway. They reach Deja's room, where she's preparing for her wedding. After thanking Kantos Khan for bringing him, Deja asks to be alone with John. John asserts that Deja can't marry, so she asks for his help again. John hesitates, so Deja returns his medallion and teaches him how to return to Earth. When Sabtan enters the room, John is gone. Deja thinks he's returned to Earth, but as they leave the room, John watches from the ceiling. When John exits, a disguised Matai Shan takes him. John wakes up in a vehicle, and Matai Shan guesses where he came from, and he's aware of America. He deduces that John's ability is due to the difference in gravity between Mars and Earth. In another disguise, Matai Shan controls John with a device on his wrist. He shows John the wedding parade and explains that because Deja discovered the ninth ray, she must perish as well. Matai Shan asserts that the ninth ray must remain with the people they can control, like Sabtan. Deja's death will ensure Saldanga's reign and lead to Barsoom's demise. Matai Shan claims they've been manipulating the planetary destructions to feed on them since time immemorial, meaning since time started. As Matai Shan prepares to transport John to prison, Woola arrives and bites Matai Shan's device, allowing John to take the medallion and escape on a flyer. The guards chase him, but John directs them to crash on the city's moving legs, while Sola shoots down the last pursuer. They regroup, and John thanks them for saving him. John prepares his flyer and tells Sola to get on, but she's reluctant, as Starks don't really fly, you know what I mean? Still, the three crash into the city of Tharks, only to learn that Tal is now the chieftain. Goodness sakes, the Tharks send John to prison, where he finds out Tars that is well beat up. They are taken into the arena, where John is changed to a stone. The Tars release a giant ape, and due to Tars' injuries, they get hit. In the audience, Sola calls out to her father, and Sarkoja overhears this. John distracts the ape from Tars and leaps over it. He tries to remove the chains from the stone, so Tal orders to release another ape. The other ape approaches Tars. Sarkoja taunts Sola, but she retaliates and drops them both into the arena. An ape rips Sarkoja apart, while Sola protects Tars. The ape accidentally wraps itself with John's chains and frees it from the stone. John spins the chain with the stone and whips it against the ape, killing it, my friends. The other ape chases after Sola and Tars. Sola throws her sword for John to catch. He rips the ape's body from underneath, and the crowd cheers. Yeah! John challenges Tao, and the crowd supports him. Go on! Do it, John. Do it, John. Tao jumps to attack, but John beheads him. Victorious champion John convinces the Tharks to ride for Saldanga. John and the Tharks army enter. However, they learn that the wedding is in Helium. John tries to convince Tars to fly so they can reach Helium in time, but the Tars refuse. Alone, John flies over Helium and sees Saldanga army outside. He crashes the wedding to warn everyone. So Matai Shan signals Sabtan. Sabtan grabs Deja and signals the army to attack. Deja stabs his hand to release herself while John catches her. Deja retrieves a sword and fights while Sabtan fights John. He dominates the fight with the ninth ray. However, a ship crashes in. Tharks emerge from the ship to fight on Helium's side. As Sabtan is distracted, John stabs him in the leg and severs his arm. John asks Sabtan about the thorns, but Matai Shan controls the ninth ray weapon to kill him. The weapon also chokes John, but Deja attacks Matai Shan, saving him. Matai Shan shapeshifts into Deja, and they fight. And now we are just confused because who is who? When John reaches them, Matai Shan holds Deja at knife point, plotting to replace her and sabotage her discovery of the ninth ray. Deja steals his medallion, which John throws. Tars picks it up and hands it to John, only to realize that it's Matai Shang in disguise, who disappears before they attack. Finally, Sadanga surrenders, and John proposes to Deja, which she accepts, you know what I mean? And the two are well at that evening, my friends. Later, Deja finds an uneasy John on the balcony, a troubled John. Thought he promises to return to their bed soon. And a little bit later, John throws away the medallion, deciding that he belongs on Mars now. However, a guard suddenly shapeshifts into Matai Shang and returns John to Earth. John wakes up in the cave and desperately tries to return without the medallion, but fails. Recalling Matai Shang's knowledge of Earth, he deduces that there are thorns on Earth. John searches for the medallion for 10 years. One day, his diggers find something, but John becomes wary of the thorns. Soon, John gets sick and dies. Throughout his journal, John explains that if his body on Earth dies, his copy on Mars dies too. Thus, and this is why he had this odd funeral request. You know what I mean? He tells Edgar that he is the key, and suspects the thorns will destroy his body. So Edgar rushes to the mausoleum or museum or lair, whatever you'd like to call this. Edgar struggles to open the door until he remembers that John calls him Ned. He taps the letter on the door and it opens. And then a thorn appears behind Edgar, but they find the museum empty. The thorn is shot from behind. And John appears. He greets Edgar and explains. He explains how he used pufferfish toxin to stimulate and simulate his death. He never found the medallion, but he does thank Edgar for bringing him the thorn, who has one. John asks Edgar if he's willing to be his protector, and he accepts. John says goodbye and enters the museum yet again, but with the medallion in his hand. And then he cites the phrase that returns him to Mars. If you have received value on this video and now you know a story that you wished you'd learn, I thank you for your time and I thank you for listening. And most of all, thank you for subscribing and telling and sharing everyone about this. This one took a long time, so thanks a bunch.